Yeah, you already know what it is. But if you don't, let me explain it to you. The bench is our studio, iPhone is the microphone. We don't need no fancy shit, cause we do it hardcore. Podcast at the bus stop, podcast at the bus stop, podcast at the bus stop, podcast at the bus stop. Talking about Tinder, talking about Bieber, talking about dating, talking about relationships, talking about Drake and all the dumb shit, talking about sex, talking about penis. Podcast at the bus stop, 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 podcast at the bus stop. It's the Bus Stop Podcast, and we ain't going nowhere. You can put that on my life. Yeah. Hey, we're back with another edition of the Bus Stop Podcast. I'm Jason.
I'm Erfan.
And with us is a very special guest. Women love him, men love him. I know my girlfriend loves him. No, it's not Adam Levine, but it's relationship coach and blogger Mark Groves. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for hanging out in our studio.
This is the best. I was going to say this is the best studio I've ever been in, but I haven't been in many studios, so it's pretty good.
Yeah.
Wet today.
Yeah, it's a little.
This one.
Yeah, it's a wet and rainy day in Vancouver. No surprise. So we'll have to speak loudly and kind of fight with the noise here, but it's all good. So Erfan, what's going on with you since we last spoke?
I was in my building storage unit this weekend.
Okay.
And that brings out the best of me, as you know.
Yes.
So I want to destroy everything in sight, because everything that I need is in the back.
Right.
And I feel like a hoarder. Yeah, it's really bullshit. So
did you purge anything?
No, I was there with my wife and daughter, and I couldn't really destroy anything
right
at that point. So, but I have destroyed things in the past when it was just me. And I'm like, fuck it, I'm gonna buy it new. Right. Yeah, so that was that. And we have no penis stories, by the way, this week.
Well, no.
No pun intended.
Something might come up in this podcast. Who knows?
We're gonna have to bring up wieners just to sasatisfy the
listeners.
Quota,
yeah,
the wiener quota.
Exactly. We kind of have a penis quota. So, anyways, so I got a new fitness goal. I've decided that, as we know, I'm 86% sexy.
Yeah.
This was predetermined, Mark, previously. But I've decided, you know what? We're not going to focus on body fat percentage and all that good stuff. I want to be a white guy in his 30s who can dunk a basketball.
Okay.
That's a good fitness goal.
Yeah, so
Did you do it previously? That would be...
When I was like 17.
Oh.
So.
And you have the added advantage that you're already pretty tall.
Tall, but genetically for a white guy, 6'2" just isn't quite enough. It still requires a lot of athleticism.
Yeah, it does. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm working on. I'm determined that
I don't think I could ever reach that sort of fitness goal myself.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not even Muggsy Bogues couldn't get there.
Didn't he dunk? I thought he could dunk.
I don't think he ever dunked. Did he dunk?
I don't know. I think it was Spud Webb. I think it was Spud Webb that was the
yeah.
Yeah, I might need you to give me a boost, like with your hands as I run.
Little Fisher Price net.
Yeah.
But anyways, that's what I'll be working on. So maybe
what's the timeline.
I'm hoping like September.
It's pretty good. Are you gonna get those shoes? Remember the shoes they had in the? Maybe I'm older, but they had shoes in the 90s that had the platform on the front.
Oh, yeah.
And people would get like 2-3 inches to their vertical.
That's true. I forgot about that.
On Seinfeld too.
Something like it.
Yeah. Kramer wear it, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they thought he was mentally handicapped because of it.
Yeah. So hopefully we can hit that goal, and then we can, we can get a video up there just to prove it to everybody.
You gotta do that before you hit Kits Beach in the summer.
Yeah, that's a short time frame.
You hear his voice cracking a little.
What involves training for dunking a basketball?
I think it's a lot. Well, I got to start jumping.
That's part of it. Very sports specific.
I think like a lot of leg exercises.
A lot of legs, a lot of abs, a lot of core. And just practicing jumping over and over again.
I remember when I was younger, bullshit my parents would feed me was Play a lot of basketball so you get taller. That was the thing they were trying to get me out.
My parents tried the sleep. If you sleep more, although that might actually be true, that you grow in your sleep.
Oh, very good. Well,
I think it's
penises grow in their sleep.
That's true.
Oh, many times.
I often woke up in the morning and it was bigger.
But I think it's all down to genetics anyway. So.
Yeah. The penis part or the jumping?
Probably that, and you're growing taller.
All of it. All of it. All of it
all
is.
Genetics.
So, Mark, you know what? Why don't you just give the brief version of what you do, and then we'll just in a few words, few sentences, and then let's we'll kind of dig in. We'll have some questions for you, and we'll kind of dig into everything there is about relationships.
Sweet. I guess the briefest version is I'm really passionate around the science behind human connection. Like, what makes some relationships last, others not. Really sort of the struggles that we have in relationships and why do we have them. So I guess that's pretty brief as it goes.
Now, do you work specifically with men or both men and women?
Yeah, men and women.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, no, I used to actually do similar to what you do, but it was strictly with men. And I would take him out to meet women. We would go out there, all that kind of stuff. I stopped it because I hated it, because it just, the guys, I don't know if you ever read the book, The Game?
Yeah.
Yeah, by Neil Strauss. It was kind of turning into that when I didn't want it to, and as much as I fought it, it kind of kept going that way. So now I just strictly focus on fashion. But there was a dating guy recently too. I don't know if you heard about him. He got into a lot of trouble.
Blanc guy.
I think was that him? Maybe that's the name. But he got into trouble where women were not taking. Well, not women. His clients weren't taking no for an answer.
Oh, yeah.
Women, and the women would reject
in Vancouver,
them.
you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard about the guy on Robson.
Yes. So are you similar to that, or how do you? What do you do?
I am not at all. So
awesome.
Whereas the pickup culture or the game, I mean, the premise behind the book, The Game, is through like trying to pick up women, the guy sort of found himself. That's the idea, the love story of it.
Yeah.
So in the idea of the pickup culture, where they would teach like social skills and confidence, I'm more like actually become the type of person that other people would want to be with instead of pretending to be.
Right. So being authentic.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe just be yourself and learn how to be confident in that. And naturally, our relationships just improve when we fall in love with who we really are.
Right. So are people, at what point are people coming to you? Are they coming to you in a relationship that's failing, or are they coming to you in hopes of finding a relationship? When are you getting these people?
Yeah, kind of in all shifts. I think the people will come sort of as like, I don't know what other term to use, but like almost like a one-on-one boot camp to get them ready for a relationship. Maybe they've experienced failure in relationship past. And the other one too is, and I think this just sort of goes to our society, is that, you know, we don't usually look to build relationship skills till we've messed up, till our relationships have gone south. And then we're like, oh, wait a second, I don't know how to navigate this, or I'm not really sure how to have this conversation. And that's usually when couples seek marriage counseling or coaching. And that's why when you look at marriage counseling as an intervention, it usually doesn't produce greater marital outcomes.
Right.
So, yeah, I kind of get all sorts of walks. You know, a lot of like men having a difficult time communicating or meeting their women at that level of communication that they might desire, and women wanting to understand what the man means by what they say or don't say.
So, for example, say a guy comes to you, needs help. Where do you start? Because remember when I would do it, I would take the whole guy, his what he was eating, his diet, like his fitness, everything. But where do you start when somebody comes to you, just as a man?
Yeah, just be like getting sort of like an audit or an assessment of what's going on in their life. So, you know, I definitely pay attention to nutritionally what's going on with them, fitness-wise, that sort of thing, because, you know, that saying, how we do one thing is how we do everything, is so true. I think when we lack discipline or keeping our word to ourselves, that's shown in promising someone you're going to have coffee with them at 7 and I'm going to go to the gym tomorrow.
Right.
You know, it translates to everything.
Yeah.
That's why I think relationships are so interesting, because often our romantic relationships are just a reflection of where we're out in the rest of our life too.
Right. So what events led you to this line of work? Is there something specific that just kind of, you know, hey, I gotta shake something up for myself, or?
Yeah, it was definitely like through my own relationship misses. It was through, you know, I dated a girl for 5 years who was just spectacular, and I got engaged to her, but it just wasn't what I really wanted to do, and it wasn't like I didn't actually want to marry her. And the day I got engaged was kind of like the day I was like, I haven't been paying attention to what my heart's been saying for a long time.
Right.
And now I'm bringing someone else down the path with me. So when I ended that relationship was really when I can in hindsight be like, yeah, that was the moment that I really went, how did I show up to this relationship? When did I take a right when I should have taken a left?
Right. Right.
That was kind of like, you know, as they say in psychology that people go in it to seek to fix themselves. So I'm very much true. It's like when I'm reading or doing anything, even working with other people, it came from a very selfish place for sure. It was like I'm trying to understand how to make it work for me.
Right. And it's interesting how the older you get, I know for myself, things just start coming together. Like I can certainly, I'm at a point now where I can look at past relationships and understand how they cultivated certain behaviors, and start to kind of piece it all together and go, oh, so that's why I act like an asshole.
Totally. Like, you know, when I talk to people and they, like people who knew me formally before I started doing this work or even reading it, you know, there's like this disconnect between, you know, 5 years ago we were going to a bar trying to pick up chicks, and now I'm writing about chicks.
Right.
You know, and it's such a different shift of my own same look back on relationships, and I'm like, man, I was a shitty communicator when I was 21. Like,
yeah,
I think of my poor girlfriend who maybe she was a bad communicator too, you know.
Right.
I look back and I wonder, like, our skill sets.
At 21, you can't really be expected to do much well.
I was good at making out on the dance floor.
Oh, yeah.
That was. Okay. I thought I was good.
Right.
Let's get clear there.
Right.
So, I don't want to jump too far ahead, but just on the psychology and everything on it. I've read a lot of these books, and one thing that I took away from all of them is everything we do is because of sex.
It's to do with sex?
Yeah, our primary focus to get into a relationship, everything we do, like getting a nice job, getting fit, etc., is to get laid, eventually reproduce. So then once you're in the relationship, you know, sometimes that goes by the wayside and you have problems, things like that. So you tell
once you get the sex,
yeah, exactly.
Then you let your body go. You stop.
So when clients come to you, do you take them on a psychology route as well and say, look, you were doing this because of this, or?
Yeah, I mean, I really like the sort of combination of the psychology, so we can understand why do we do what we do. Yeah. But I think the part of psychology that I don't always love, and of course not all psychologists or therapists are like, I don't know all of them, yep. But I mean, they're not all like this. We don't want to live in our past, you know, we want to use it to understand, but then how do we change what we're doing today and in the future? So to get back to the idea that everything we do is for sex, which, you know, my 21-year-old brain would certainly agree with you.
Right.
And even my 36-year-old brain has many, many of those same desires. I think from a sheer evolutionary perspective, for sure. Yeah. That's why we're here to procreate. That we're here to connect. You know, Brené Brown always says that we're wired for connection.
Right.
That's absolutely true. I think, though, that even when we look at data from, like, orangutans or chimpanzees or the bonobo is supposed to be our closest relative, we're capable of so much more conscious thought than, you know, even people in a tribal setting 1,000 years ago. You know, so I think there are driving forces, but, you know, walking down, you know, if you're in a relationship and you're walking down the street, there's probably plenty of times that, you know, men and women would want to touch someone who went by them, and we have to still make a pretty, you can't go doing that.
Right.
There's a lot of morality involved in it.
Morality and
legality.
Yeah,
legality and
prison.
Yeah.
In prison, there's not the same law. You get touched.
Yeah.
You can touch, yes.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. So I do agree that there is that underlying basis, but then we also have to look, you know, even if you're walking by someone and attracted to them, or you have a deep connection with someone at a party, but you're in a relationship, is that because you really just want to touch that other person, or is it because there's a deep soulful connection?
So I'm glad you brought this up, because we've kind of talked about this before, that yeah, how do you tell the difference, right? And I think a lot of people get trapped in that when for me, I know that I enjoy talking to people and connecting with people, and at what point does that become inappropriate?
Yeah.
On that, I think.
Like I could, like you said, I could strike up a conversation with someone and maybe there's some sort of connection there. But I mean, a human connection can last 10 minutes, or it can be meant for more than that.
You can make it last longer.
Yeah.
I think that once we start to wonder if we're doing something wrong, it's usually a good sign that,
right.
In our own guidance system, because I think for everybody that area gets grayer.
Right.
And I think too that when we look at our relationships, we've also made it wrong to be sexually attracted to other people. But that's denying our innate human
biology
capacity, right? Yeah, exactly. But it's like even in the idea of being in a very long-term relationship, and you suggest the idea of having like role play,
right?
And relationships tend to become boring because people aren't doing new stuff. Even date night needs to be a different type of date night,
right?
So even in the bedroom, if you want to keep things new and exciting, and you suggest like the woman wearing a blonde wig, and she's like, what, do you want to fuck a blonde now? Instead of being like, that would be super fun, and I think that that's something we need to become more aware of, that's by denying that her walking down the street and seeing a guy and being like, that guy's attractive, is denying her just her natural skill set.
And I know you talk a lot about obviously men kind of like changing our definition of masculinity, right? Being more vulnerable, being more aware. But the same goes for the women, right? It's a two-way street, because, like you said, if you make the suggestion of wear a blonde wig tonight, they got to be able to not internalize that as you must not like me.
Yeah, and I think that too. There's a lot of, we want men to be more emotional. But then I just wrote about this recently that, when we actually look at the data from Brene Brown, when men are emotional, they sort of like, women get scared of it, and they almost get angry at the men for being emotional. So we want it, but are we actually ready to know what that looks like? And then as a man, how do you express emotion without emasculating yourself?
I think like some of that is just evolutionary, where men always had to be strong back in the caveman days and even in the 50s. And now it's only recently, maybe in the last, 20, 30 years, men have to be sensitive. And I think just from our primitive brains, that's not normal to see a man crying or something.
But see, for me, I was actually always kind of a sensitive guy.
Same.
And then I was dating like a really mean girl who really abused me for that. And then I became this complete opposite, totally disconnected, totally just like in it for sex, and just the exact opposite of showing any of that.
Yeah, nice guy never got anywhere.
Right.
And I always
supposedly, but I think too that we have these gender ideas. Man needs to be like this, woman needs to be like this. And by doing that, we put people in boxes, and we don't allow them to just, because even within gender, there's a lot of varying, like, you were more sensitive. I don't know if you were more sensitive. I was too. So, hey, we got 3 sensitive dudes here. Let's all cry. But yeah, I think that there's only one archetype of a man is a tough, big, muscular man. But, I would argue that the ability to have highly emotionally intelligent conversation is the currency of the future for women.
I agree.
Sorry, go ahead.
But I think there's just as many women that think they want that and don't know how to have that either.
Yeah. Agreed. And I think in this feminist movement, which is beautiful, I think that it's required, especially from what you were alluding to, the patriarchal marriages of the 50s and 60s. I think it's really important that the feminist movement's happening, but we're also swinging so far one way that it's not really allowing like men the space to be men too.
Right.
And it's causing confusion too. Like, are guys able? If you want us to be emotional, then we're emotional. We're pussies, or we're not men anymore.
Absolutely.
And it's like, God, make up your mind. It's like, choose how you want us is as difficult as choosing your outfit to go.
Yeah, and I don't think women realize the emotional scars they can leave on men. I always hear about the abuse that men put on women, but I can tell you. Whew.
You and I laugh about this, but we've both been through it.
Well, I can laugh.
It's very scarring. Well, just in my 20s, I've said this a billion times, I've spent tens of thousands of dollars just trying to attract women. all blew up in my face, left me with thousands in debt. And then you just become bitter and angry in the end.
Yeah.
And you're just like, well, fuck this shit, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
Well, and you store it all in a storage locker.
Yeah, you store it all, and one day you blow up.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
I remember, so, you know, I used to laugh at it thinking it was a funny story, but not really connecting the dots to how it was affecting my behavior. But yeah, this mean girl that abused me sensitively, she also abused me sexually in terms of, like, I remember her telling me, I think, like, the first time we slept together, she was like, is that it? Yeah, we were together for 2 years, but that was just her way of, she had, like, I can see now, she had her own issues,
really?
But she had to kind of keep me down. And I can also look that after that relationship, I spent the rest of my 20s trying to prove myself sexually. I was just going out there trying to, like, give orgasms to the world.
We have all done the find myself through vaginas, and kind of odd because we all come alive through a vagina. But
yeah.
Unfortunately, you can't find yourself in them.
No.
I did the same thing after heartbreak. I was like, you know what? I'm done with this. I'm going to just go try to pick up chicks all the time.
Yeah.
And that it didn't get that old, but it got tiring.
So, talking about a lot of men issues here. What are the main issues that women come to you with?
You know, like a lot of self-love stuff.
Yeah, because as guys, we put women on these pedestals, like they're just these goddesses, and we have no chance with any of them. So when women come to you, what's their biggest issue?
Trying to figure out why they choose men that they choose. You know, why do they keep picking unavailable men? But you know, again, it sounds like it's one gender's issue, but it's really we all suffer with the same stuff. And I think it's a lot of that, a lot of self-worth stuff, a lot of like compromising their own boundaries to get love from a man.
Right.
And I think we don't even realize how it's almost like it's hereditary, you know, because we see what goes on in our own families, and that's how we learn our family systems and how we learn to do what we do. And so I think a lot of it tracks back to maybe I wonder if there's just been a lot of bad lessons taught from the relationships of the 50s and 60s.
Yeah, I mean, back then you just put up with whatever.
Yeah. Well, how many, you know, I consider myself pretty blessed that my dad is a pretty emotionally inviting guy. Like, right. You know, there was never frowned upon to cry, or they hugged us a lot, or my mom and dad. I don't know if your guys' experience was the same.
I was more of a jerk, so they didn't know he wanted to hug me anyway.
There was no reason to hug you.
Yeah.
Lay down on the couch, Erfan. I think we got some stuff to talk about.
Yeah.
So, Erfan right now is married, got a family. But if 25-year-old Erfan came to you, blowing tens of thousands of dollars on women, buying a Mustang to try and find a relationship.
When I was 21, I bought a Mustang to get girls.
That is a bad sign, right?
And I got girls, but I was just a chauffeur. 3 in the morning, go driving home from the club. Oh yeah.
I would ask. Yeah, I would definitely look into why you felt like you needed to buy those things. But I think I would also be asking myself, because I did the same thing. So.
Yeah. But I mean, evolutionary, it made sense, right? Like, I got a car now, that should get me women.
Hold on, but when you didn't have the car, were you getting chicks?
I was getting them to call me and drive them places.
But
no, before the car.
Before I had a car, no, never got chicks.
So yeah, so there was probably, you know, a part that was like, hey, but I'm not enough to get chicks, so if I got a car, not like I'm telling you something you don't know, right? Like, even getting back to that, is that why we work out? You know, because you know, maybe we want to be, you know, from an evolutionary point of view, the guy who sticks out, the one who's got more. I forget what and they call it trappings. So like a BMW,
right?
Or, you know, and that sort of stuff.
But according to,
I didn't know a Mustang was on that.
Well, I mean, this is 15 years ago.
I thought you a type of girl though, the Mustang.
That's true.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, Mustang definitely attracts a certain type.
What kind? Which one? The 5.0?
No, this was just a V6, man. I was 21, just out of school, loads of debt. I'm like, I can get a V6. And then
having a car got you a girl, though.
Yeah,
for sure.
And the thing was, that car was MSRP 21 grand. By the time I was done, I was at 36.
Oh, you put some stereo?
You know, when you go
tinted windows.
You go in there with the shit, right? And the guy's like, you want to add this to it too, don't you? And
you bought it brand new?
Yeah, it's brand new. Damn. And I tried to back out, but then the sales guy said, look, man, you're not going to get any chicks with a Civic. So...
man, I had the car I had for sure didn't get. I got no girls because of my car.
I had a Volkswagen Golf. It was crammed.
I got chicks, wouldn't it?
Well, you couldn't really, like, I'm a tall guy. You couldn't really do much in the backseat of a Golf.
No, that's fair. It's probably not. You needed like a minivan.
Yeah.
But that again would not get you any chicks.
Maybe soccer
I
moms.
think a minivan back then, or like I'm just thinking a truck with no windows on the sides. Those ones, those A-team guys.
Oh yeah.
The ones with the little window are. That's you're gonna get. That's a creepy van.
But it's funny. You mentioned obviously the currency of the future being. Actually, what did you say? Emotion, right?
Emotion, yeah.
Right. And it's true. In the past, the currency, or at least what we thought the currency was I know that I got women once I got a car, once I got a steady job, I got my own apartment. It was like good to go. And then as I got older, realizing that wasn't enough, and I didn't have any more currency left.
Yeah, isn't that true?
And it was because I was disconnected and didn't know how to give that other stuff.
Well, once we start connecting, I mean, once you like truly connect with someone and even experience sex on that level and communication, you know, it's a totally different, profound experience than, the more superficial experience of being in a relationship.
Yeah. And it's funny, if I could talk to the past Erfan now, I mean, it's because I used to subscribe to that same theory.
Same. Oh yeah.
And then I remember I moved to Vancouver, and that was when I started kind of getting the self-awareness and connecting with people. I had a roommate. I had no car. I had none of that old currency, and yet I found myself in the best relationship I've ever had because
awesome.
it didn't matter about that stuff. It mattered that I showed up.
All of a sudden you started having real conversations about real stuff. And even once you start, once you get into that self-awareness and you start sharing your learnings or understandings, you just naturally will attract people who are doing the same thing.
Exactly, and that's exactly it. It was all of a sudden, I was going through some sort of journey and attracted someone going through that same journey. So it's that law of attraction, magnetism, whatever you want to call it.
The secret. I want a red bike. Here's one. Here you go. You wanted one, right? Yeah, it's true too. Like once the long-term fulfilling relationships, which is very different than just a long relationship, come from the desire to always be growing because we're always changing. Like we are always changing, and it's I usually find that it's relationships where people aren't always talking about what's going on, that all of a sudden it's like 5 years down the road and they have to have a hard conversation, but they haven't had one for 5 years, so they're having 5 years worth of conversations.
Right.
And that's daunting.
Right.
It's no wonder people go, fuck this, I'm out.
Right.
Because that's a lot of work to have to do, and it's easy to just hit reset.
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys were talking about like when you grow up with your family and you take some of that baggage with you as an adult. I see that with my daughter. Like I try to always think like never to bring in what happened with my family into my marriage, and because I see my daughter sees it, and she's only 2.5, but they're like a sponge. They pick up everything. And like my daughter now says to me, if she can sense I'm getting a little testy about something, she'll look at me and yell out my first name and say, Erfan, what's your problem? Right? So it's like you don't realize the effect you have on somebody, and you start to see, shit, I might be starting to create a shitty human being down the road. You know what I mean? So
yeah. You got to be careful. Just give her lots of love. It always seems like the girls have daddy issues, and it's because of lack of love.
Oh yeah, I've seen that with a lot of female friends that I have and that my wife has. That the ones that make the bad relationship choices are the ones whose dads were never really around, and they're the ones that always make the bad choices.
Right.
Yeah, it's amazing once you think of the profound, like the fact that you're raising someone to make choices.
Yeah.
And I always wonder, like as men, because there are men out there who are not good men, just like there's women out there who are not good women, and they're raising their daughters and sons to choose and be like they are, and that is huge. Like if I think like I don't have a daughter,
right,
but if I did, I would be, and maybe one day I will, which would be great, to think like I'm teaching her what kind of men to choose and how to expect to be treated.
Yeah. It is scary.
But what a beautiful thing too, right? Like so empowering, but also it's like one time you say shit or you like raise your voice because you're depleted from a long day at work.
Right. I would say it's just as big of a responsibility to do that with if you have a son.
Oh yeah.
Right? Teach the son how to be emotional. Teach the son that it's okay to, fail at baseball and cry or whatever it is.
Even though when we look at people getting divorced and you know, a lot of the times people will say we're staying together for the kids. But I remind people that you don't have to be from a broken home to be from a broken home.
Right.
Even the term broken home is such a, almost like a shaming term. And when we have conversations with our partner, even when we're dissolving a relationship, the kids see all that, they experience all that, and I think we just always have to be so mindful of the way we treat the people in our lives and talk to them, because like you were saying, your daughter she hears everything.
Yeah.
And even
everything.
she feels the things you don't say.
Yeah.
Right, that's the scary part. Yeah, they can pick up on the tension.
Oh yeah, it's you don't know this until you have, like, I never knew any of this until I had my daughter, but you just see it live in person every day.
Yeah.
Like, where did you start saying what's your problem? Yeah. So
When it's so much more than us too, right? Like when you think about these people who get divorced and then use their kids as tools against one another, or they yell or raise their voice or rude or swear to their partner and the co-parent, that's, I mean, the effect is so, it ripples.
Right. So we did research on Tinder a while back, and you know that what made me feel good, because you know we were talking earlier about masculinity and the big tough guy, and apparently women respond the best to Tinder profile pics that are more like metrosexual, well-dressed, sensitive-looking guys.
aren't
Oh,
aggressive.
really?
Yeah, like if you're not aggressive, then you have a better chance.
The gym selfies are like one of the worst.
Good.
Yeah.
But you know what? They're just attracting the chicks who are taking mirror selfies too.
Exactly.
I have a general rule that if you don't have enough friends to take your picture, then I don't want to date you.
That's actually good. Yeah.
Yeah, I had that problem ages ago. Didn't have enough friends to take my photo. Yeah,
Well, you found yourself married, so
yeah, but
you
those
did
were my
pretty
dark
good.
days when I had no friends.
Yeah, Tinder I think is a really amazing tool, and online dating itself is, I mean, just another way to meet people.
Are you upset that Tinder's charging people more over 30?
I heard that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like
so I guess their premium account now, I guess to, you know, again, to make money off it, in order to get some of these extra privileges, you have to get this premium account. And if you're under 30, it's $9.99, and if you're over 30, it's $19.99.
What do you think that is? That the money, disposable income, or
That's what I was
more desperate, maybe?
Well, I'm just thinking, like, I guess, is there more 30-somethings looking for love on Tinder? I don't know.
It'd be bad if they charged the women over 30 more money, or the women over 35.
I think that's the next strategy.
What dicks if they do that?
You know, the thing is, like, plenty of fish that you've written for before, they're free.
Right.
And, I mean, the thing you can pay to get like a star next to your name or something, but it's a weird thing to do, especially with online dating when there's so many free services.
You had to start paying. I think, doesn't, if you pay on Tinder, you get access to swipe in other cities?
I think what you can do is, like, you can manipulate your postal code.
And you can go back.
And you can go back.
Because I think I've been on Tinder. I've done the by accident swipe when you were on a roll of lefts.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you're like, damn it!
Yeah.
That one looked okay.
Yeah. No, I think that's a huge thing.
So, sorry, just to go back to your relationship teachings, I'm guessing one thing that everybody just comes to you with is self-worth. Would that be the one common thing the sexes come with you with to you?
Yeah. I think ultimately the work ends up being helping people get back to who they are. And then also it's almost like you're giving them permission to see that what they really want, they're allowed to want.
Right.
And I think that's the main, with women, that's definitely one I see a lot. And with men too, where it's like, they've been so disconnected from who they are because they were taught that they had to get married by 30 and have kids and drive a nice car and have a big house. And then when you get to a point, you realize that none of that shit matters.
Right.
Oh yeah.
And if it doesn't work out that you get married by 27, you don't have a disease.
Right.
You're just a human being who didn't follow a script.
Right.
Not the script, not your script. And it's almost like like a lot of the writing I do on Instagram is really about reminding people, and it's reminding myself, that you're allowed to want what you want, and you're allowed to not have it all figured. No one has it fucking figured out.
Right. So I know you've mentioned on some of your articles, about, being alone, right? Like, it's not a bad thing, right? Like, it's okay to be alone and choose to be alone. But when's the line of like, it's a problem? Like, I can see that a little bit in the past in myself. Like, you know, you can hide behind, hey, I'm waiting for the right one, or you know, it's okay to be alone. But as the years go by, like maybe you're just staying real disconnected.
It's me.
Yeah.
Like you and I were in George Clooney dating women every other weekend or something.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You know, yeah, it's just an interesting thing to think about, you know. At what point is it
Yeah, when is that balance tip in the other direction?
Yeah.
I think it is just really important to be honest with ourselves too. Like, are we giving people a fair shake? You know,
Right.
Are we, you know, like, are we spending time with the wrong people?
Right.
Because often we have a feeling that we shouldn't be with someone, and we stay with them because they have the car and the stuff on the list, but they don't have
Or a
that
vagina.
connection, or the vagina. The vagina is the important thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that part of it, and we also pick a lot of people from a place of loneliness, because there's a
Right.
difference between being alone and being happy with your life and being lonely.
I think one problem is just having friends. People don't have friends. Like you could, I think that I saw this a million times before, but you have 500 friends on Facebook, but you don't really have any friends.
Yeah, but your friend
Right?
list.
And then you're always looking for that one person to be your boyfriend or girlfriend, but you don't really have a social circle. So, and then you put all your eggs in that one basket of that one person, and it's just kind of like a vicious spiral with that. But if you don't have that support group of just friends you can go out with and hang out with, I think there's a study that came out a while ago that said men need to hang out with other men like 10 hours a week or something, otherwise they'll go insane.
Oh, really?
So I think it's really important to just start with yourself and have friends, and then just start to.
When friends are such great neutral observers of our partner too, like, I don't know if you guys have ever had it, or you disliked a friend's partner. The people around us are actually much better predictors of our relationships than we are in them,
Yeah.
which makes a lot of sense.
The problem, the trap you fall into though, is they'll sit and complain about their partner, and as soon as you say some shit about them, and then they go get back together with that person, now it's like, oh, we can't hang out with Jason because he thinks we're blah blah blah. So I've just learned that you just gotta hear it, listen to it, and
I think it's pretty powerful though when a friend will step out and say, hey, I'm not really sure this is the best choice for you.
That's true.
Like, I had two friends say that to me before I got engaged. They sat me down, bought me some beers, so that was nice. Anesthetized me.
Yeah.
And then said, you know, like, we really like her, we really like you. Good, that's good. But we're just not sure you guys are the best choice for each other. And then I got engaged a week later. But it really resonated with me that week. I wasn't angry with them. I was more like, oh, wow, they see it too.
right.
And you know, I think that's one thing. If we're pushing away people who dislike our partner, it's usually because they reflect something we see.
Right. And so for you, was it the time that you put in? You felt like, hey, this is the next logical step. Society says that the next step is to get engaged, or was it pressure from that individual, or your own? You just what you subscribe to as an individual that, hey, I'm at this age and that's what I should be doing.
Yeah, it was like all of those things on steroids, because it felt so. So it was definitely, it's the next logical step. It was the story I'd been taught, and as soon as I stepped out of that matrix, I was like, no one's actually doing what I've been taught. Like, people are getting married by 25, 30, but who's staying together forever happy?
Yeah. Right.
And that's when I went, everything I've been taught is bullshit. That's what really made me want to get into understanding, okay, what's really going on in this world? Like, what's really happening? And the other big one that I think a lot of men suffer from, I don't know if suffer is the right term, but is that I had this story in my brain that I must be just afraid of commitment.
I had that same story.
Yeah, and that was tough for me, because that had me being like, am I just afraid of commitment? Because then when I would talk to other people about it, they'd be like, oh, you're just afraid of commitment, and I'd be like, oh yeah, there's that again.
Right.
Yeah, and that's tough, because I mean, when men actually, and women too, I'm sure, but I can't speak for their experience, but I found that when I did act on that feeling and break off the relationship, then people were like, oh, he's just afraid of commitment.
Absolutely, and that's what I say. Like I spend a lot of time just kind of single, dating, and then people would say, yeah, there's like a societal pressure that there must be something wrong. I'm afraid of commitment, or yeah, there's something wrong because why are you still single? Or the worst is when you go to a family dinner or something, and it's I don't understand. You're such a nice guy and you have a good job. Like why aren't you with somebody? Like they don't understand that could be my choice.
Yeah, no, you can't make that choice.
Ethnic families are the worst. Like, just why aren't you married? You're 24. I had a wife and kid at your age. Like, yeah.
But if I started feeling that,
I had a wife and kid at your age.
But if I started feeling that as a man, I can only imagine the pressure on women because I know they put pressure on themselves, and the girlfriends put pressure, and
all their friends start getting engaged, and
I think like men should not get married until like they're 30 something.
I totally agree.
Like your 20s, I felt like mine was just a write off.
Yeah.
Of all the mistakes.
Competitive Mustang was married.
Well, that's just it, right? Yeah. You become a different person. Like I'm a way different person, and if you get locked into a marriage and then you change as a person, and now you're just like, hey, I don't like this person because I'm a new person.
Yeah, and I don't want to discount the people who are in great marriages who got married in their 20s because I'm sure there's lots.
Yeah.
And who subscribe to that story and are super happy. That's amazing. I think it's more for like we got to hold the torch for the people who didn't, who are like down on themselves because of it. But there's a lot of people who were way more mature than I was at 25.
Right, that's true.
Yeah, I think at 25 you're closer to 16 mentally.
Totally, especially as a guy.
Yeah. So.
And I think too, we have to remember people in their 20s. You're there to have fun and discover what you want. Like I've always been really surprised that we go from like a 3-month relationship to a 4-year one to a 3-year one to a 2-year, and then we go to life.
Yeah,
right.
We've all of a sudden just figured it out. Yeah. And we have to be easier on ourselves. Sometimes you make a decision at 22 that you're still holding yourself to at 52.
Right.
And you have such a different brain, and maybe you didn't have it all figured out, and maybe you didn't know how to maintain connection, and maybe you're not happy anymore, but you are not tied to a decision you made at 22.
Right.
And I think society needs to stop shaming the people who leave those relationships.
Agreed. And if you do leave one of those relationships because, the person was an asshole, I actually found a website. It's called Ship-A-Dick.
Oh, yeah.
And you can send them a 29-inch dick with a custom message on it.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
I hope none of us get one now in the mail.
So it could say, eat a dick, or it might just say happy birthday.
Like
this is you.
Yeah. It's like that glitter thing. Some people glitter and you open
the
a
glitter
box.
bomb, yeah. Actually, speaking of glitter bomb, there's also a bag of dicks. I think it's like gummy
yeah,
dicks.
Yeah, I saw that.
So it's like eat a bag of dicks.
We got our penis quota in there.
That'd be kind of a reward, though.
I love gummies.
That's rude, and then you'd be eating this bag of.
To me, it's like a gummy worm.
Yeah,
with a couple balls.
A shorter worm, wider.
So, you have a business, obviously. Well, what's your website address?
markgroves.tv.
Great. So I don't want to give away everything, but when somebody comes to you, like, what's the first step that you give them?
One of the first steps, because it really depends on the people and what's going on for them.
Mustang Erfan drives up and says, "Mark, I need your help."
I should get a picture of me in a Mustang.
Can we please see that? It would definitely. I find a lot of people don't write down actually what they want. So definitely, it's to like create a list of the things you want, and that serves two purposes. One, it's really about once you create a list of what you want, you can look at all your relationships and be like, oh my God, I wasn't picking that. And often our lists come from experiences of being like, well, I tried that wasn't good at all.
Right.
Or they write down or focus on what they don't want, which inevitably gets you what you don't want. And then I think the other thing too is we often will want so many things from our partner, but if we were to look at the list of all the things we want, what are we being? Like, are we being those things? And so it's a real quick way to get a real world audit of what does our life actually look like. Because till we're ready to get real with ourselves and be like, hey, what I'm doing isn't working. My life is filled with things I don't want. You know, I find that a lot of people will be like, well, I'm not happy, and they're in a job they hate. Like you were saying, do you assess their fitness, their nutrition? Yeah, they're not making great decisions. They're drinking all the time, you know, which, don't get me wrong, a good glass of wine's good.
Yeah.
But they're going out partying a lot, and then they wonder why they're meeting people on speakers dancing, you know, and that's not bringing the right partner that you want.
Right.
You know, and not to say that I didn't meet some really lovely ladies on the dance floor back in the day.
Right.
We're not together now.
Right.
I always found it weird about clubbing. It seems like a horrible place to meet somebody. It's so loud. It's crowded. You can spill a drink on somebody. And there's a lot of guys there that just want to hurt you if you look at a girl that they might like.
But here's what happens. You're drunk, and there's vaginas.
Yeah, there's not a lot of long-term commitment going on. And thank God for birth control, because now there's also not a lot of people married with babies.
That's true.
From that now.
So where is a good first date place? Just dating in general. So let's get rid of the club, and if you want to have one of these meaningful relationships,
I can't imagine the guy saying, "Let's go to fucking what's a club in Vancouver called?" I don't know. I've never been.
Oh my gosh, I got brought to this one that was horrible. I knew it was bad because the gang task force showed up. Caprice on Granville.
Caprice, yeah.
On Granville, do not.
I heard a comedian talk about Caprice, and he was basically saying, like, you walk in there, and there's like a trap door that takes you to Surrey.
Oh, that's funny.
So take your first date to Surrey. What's that really dangerous part of Surrey called?
Wally?
Yeah, Wally.
Yeah.
I was actually there for lunch a couple weeks ago, and my friend was like, "Is that blood on the sidewalk?" And I'm like, "Is that a possibility? Like, this is real?" I remember making the mistake when I met this girl online dating that I brought her for dinner, and then I'm from Calgary originally, so I'm a Calgary Flames fan.
Okay.
Yeah, and I don't like the Canucks.
I'm Toronto Maple Leafs, which is hard to say, but we can bond over the fact that I hate the Canucks.
Yeah, exactly.
I
So
love the Canucks. I'm from Vancouver.
So I can respect that, but we were in Calgary at the time, and the girl was like, first thing she said was like, "Oh, I hate the Flames," and I was like, I don't even want to be on this date anymore. But I was at dinner, and it was the first time I met a girl for dinner from online dating, and I was vowed then again after like I don't know, it was like $90 the bill, and I was like, I'm never spending $90 on a Canuck fan that I didn't like, you know?
Right.
Well,
This was
anyone.
the first date too?
Yeah.
$90. Yeah.
See, exactly, right? I was like, I was just out of university then, so I'd be in broke ass for sure. So I think for sure a coffee or a walk is a really good one. Like, grab a coffee, go for a walk. Any sort of activity that involves, like if you've had some good preliminary conversation.
Right.
Hiking is a good one.
Okay.
Anything that involves getting your heart going, because it's almost like it's almost like a psychological hack, because they'll associate you with the experience of awe.
Right.
Right? Getting their blood going, serotonin. So it's almost like a good hack. Coffee is great because you can filter, right? You filter coffee. It was not a pun I meant, but you literally are like, okay, maybe not. It's like a good.
Right.
You should pay, I think.
Yeah.
What do you guys think of that one?
Well,
I've always paid.
I've always done that, but I also have friends that always go Dutch, and they just
On a first date?
I know. I'm surprised by it too, but
Do they get second dates?
it's a good question.
But that's-
Some of them do. Some of them. I had a roommate, a female. She was in her mid-30s, and I remember when I first got to Vancouver, and she was telling me about some of her Vancouver experiences. I think
Yeah.
Vancouver kind of gets a bad rap for
Yeah,
men.
I hear that too.
And she went out for drinks first date, and I guess the time for the bill came, and her purse was on the table. He reached in her purse, grabbed the 20 to pay for the drinks, and kept the change.
Wow. So that
And this guy was like 40. Like I would
didn't
expect
do
that from
well
like a
for us.
20-year-old. Like
Wow. So yeah, because on my
he made
first
money
date-
from the date.
On my first date with my wife, I used to live in Chinatown, so we went for a walk on the Olympic Village and had a
Beautiful
coffee.
area.
Yeah, and then
Well
after,
done. Good game.
yeah, and she texted me later saying, "Thanks, that was the best date I've ever had." And then we got married.
what about shooting guns? That would get the heart rate up.
I think that would be pretty good. Cold steel in their hand.
Yeah.
And yeah, you bring up 40-year-old. Because I was going to say, dating must change for women and men as they go on the opposite sides, right? Because for women, I wouldn't say it's easier, but they're in their prime in their 20s when they're out there dating, right? They look the best, etc., etc. For a guy, he's just an idiot. Well, I was anyway. No idea what the hell I'm doing. Once you get older, you become a lot better, and you become, quote unquote, more distinguished.
Yeah, we just become more like George Clooney, right?
Exactly.
That would be in a perfect world.
So I wonder, there must be a lot of differences, like when a woman comes versus when she's 25 or whatever versus 40.
Yeah.
When the man comes to you.
Well, they have to learn social media, right? I think some people find them back in the dating world, and now the landscape is completely different.
Yeah, absolutely. When all of a sudden you're like, what do you mean I gotta tweet you? What?
Right.
Yeah.
I'm dating a woman that's a bit older, and I remember, phoning her, and that was like a big deal. Like it was like she was impressed because like it's texting and email now, right?
I think that's super confusing too. Like you meet a girl, you exchange contact information, and they'll text back and forth before they meet you, but if you call them, that's too much.
Yeah, you're like a weirdo.
Yeah, but then I'm like,
text. I hate it.
well, then I'm like, wouldn't you be able to tell a lot more that I'm crazy if you talk to me on the phone? Then I could, Google how to send a witty text.
Right.
Yeah. But and I'm like, man, you guys got to get your filters better. That is horrible.
And we've talked about this before. It almost upsets me that teenage guys have it so easy now, because I remember how difficult it was trying to get a number, and then you had to call, get past the dad.
They trip into blowjobs now.
Yeah, like now it's just you send a couple emojis in your. Yeah.
Seriously though, it's such bullshit.
I still think whatever 15-year-old Erfan would still bomb.
Even in
today.
text.
I don't know.
Snapchat.
You could send a Mustang emoji.
I was just gonna say that you wouldn't have to buy one.
You could just send a picture of it.
Back when I was in high school, my friends, he had older sisters, so they would know some of these girls.
Were the best friends.
And we'd get phone numbers and we call these girls up, but we never use our real names. So I was Tony Michaels from another school, and for months I would chat with them.
Sounds like it.
Shawn Michaels.
Oh,
you're probably
Shawn
thinking
Michaels,
of. Yeah. So I would talk to them for months, and
But
then
never meet up with them.
never. Yeah.
Well, at least you got some
now.
practice.
Yeah.
Like being a guy who's in your teens, you're right. It's just remember that first phone call you had to make to a girl and you were afraid the parents would answer?
That's what I mean. The dad picks up the phone and it's scary, and you have to try and get past the dad to the girl, and then once the girl's on, you have to come up with something to say.
Oh, you had to be way wittier. You had to be on the ball.
Now it's just like, hey baby,
Hey bae. They don't even say
bae.
baby.
Yeah.
It got rid of the B because that was cliche.
I remember when I was out of high school, I was 18 or 19, first year of college. I was at Capilano College in North Van, a lot of Persian chicks there, and I'm Persian, and I met this girl.
Oh, I love Persian.
Yeah, and she was very much into being Persian. I've grown up here my whole life. I can't even speak it, right? Yeah. And so she's like, yeah, my parents want. I've only been seeing her for 2 weeks. Like, yeah, my parents want to talk to you. I'm like,
Oh my gosh,
shit.
are you serious?
So I'm like, yeah, they just want to talk to you. I'm like, okay, but they want to talk in Farsi. I know literally no Farsi, so I'm like, FOB Farsi. Anyway, that kind of ended.
because a lot of those cultures, right? It's like an interview process, right?
Yeah.
Like in order to kind of start courting the daughter, the parents got to interview you,
and you're
Is there arrange as well in your
no. The Persian culture doesn't have arranged marriages. Arab culture and stuff, yeah, they'll be arranged, but the Persians are fuck that. Too much work.
That would be really crazy.
Mark, do you wear Lululemon pants?
I do actually, yeah.
I do as well. I just had to get, we've talked about it. I've been taking abuse lately for it, so I'm just curious.
Really? Why? What's the abuse over?
I don't know, that it's not for men, but they're great pants. They're the best pants.
Tight ones, like the ones that are like the ball hugging stuff.
No, yeah.
Are you into those ones?
No, I'm into the kung fu pants.
Yeah, I got the loose, chill. They're like the best jogging pants ever.
The best.
Have you ever used their really thick ones?
No.
Oh,
you guys should be in the mafia and just be like, forget about it.
Forget about it. We could actually just rub that person out if they made fun of our pants.
That's true. That's true.
And,
now the next level though is Sax underwear. Have you tried Sax underwear?
You know what? I haven't, but I hear that they are a pleasure for the old sacroiliac.
I'm wearing one. I'm wearing them right now.
Right now too.
And-
Ergonomic comfort pouch.
How are you guys feeling? Good?
Excellent.
Good.
It hugs, it holds,
So
it
what is
lifts.
the big difference?
Huge difference. You'll never have a sweaty ball stuck to your leg again.
Where do you get them?
You can get them at Sport Check. You can get them online.
Okay, I might get some of these.
You're gonna have to.
And you guys were talking about high school. I feel like they don't teach this stuff. They don't teach this stuff in high school. I feel
The relationship.
How to be in a relationship.
Yeah,
No.
like I could have skipped home ec and maybe a math class.
Could you imagine if they gave us that instead of home ec? I've thought about this a lot. That if we just, because the determining factor of every area of your life, success in every area of your life, will be your ability to be in a relationship, not romantic, but just in general. And so I think it's so interesting that we don't teach people to have hard conversations.
Yep.
We don't teach them how to show up for each other. I mean, I was lucky to have great friends who, you know, that were just really great people.
Right.
But to think, like, I can't believe they don't teach that. But instead they taught me how to bake a fucking muffin.
Right. And now kids, it's even worse. They don't know how to communicate, period, right? Because
Now everyone's allergic to gluten, so
Yeah.
my muffin skills aren't even good.
Yeah.
Yeah, you gotta.
Can't get a girl. I'll be like, I baked you a muffin. She'll be like, gluten-free? No. Get out of here.
Is it organic?
Yeah. In Vancouver, I'm hooped.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, I think like if they had taught that in high school, that's such an important thing. Like not even just relationship, like your diet, like exercising.
But even their idea of diet back then was totally different. Like fats and cholesterols and all that.
Yeah, the 4 food groups, right? As long as you had some bread and some meat and some dairy.
Yeah. Here's some gluten and some gluten.
It's kind of a shame. Like the parents should obviously be the ones that are responsible, but you know the parents sometimes are just shitty parents or whatever, right?
The parents are sometimes really clueless, and they learn from their parents.
Right.
So, you know, it's like this hereditary passing down of how we communicate. And so it's like we're almost... It's almost like you could say you are accountable for sure to learning it, but if you don't know that what you're doing is wrong, then how are you supposed to even seek the information?
So what advice would you give our pal Justin Bieber? So, I mean, you know,
The show.
he you know, he's probably, you know, this relationship with Selena Gomez didn't work out. You know, he's getting slammed. He seems like a guy who's just a bit lost. He has everything, yet he has nothing. If he came to Mark Groves, what would Mark Groves tell Justin Bieber?
Well, he seems to have a couple of the old image issues. I don't know, he just seems so inauthentic, doesn't he?
Well, I think that's the
I mean,
thing.
to be famous that young would be pretty tough. And he also was getting tail thrown at him like a madman.
Yeah.
You know, at like 16, 15
Yeah.
probably. Right? How old was he when he was famous? Like 15?
probably 15.
It's pretty crazy. I mean, it's pretty hard to think. I would have Justin Bieber get honest with himself. I'm not sure that Justin Bieber would want to get it. He probably has someone who does that for him.
Right.
And from what I've seen in the media anyway, doesn't seem like his parents are really good, especially his dad, who wants to be his buddy, it seems like. So.
Oh, yeah. That is probably for Justin Bieber.
Yeah. But all jokes aside, you know, I just, this whole authentic and being vulnerable, and, you know, you brought up Brene Brown. You know, I've read Brene Brown. Do you think now this will be another way for guys to manipulate women, though? Like that you can almost pretend now, you know, you just start talking to a girl and say, hey, I'm just in bed reading Brene Brown. and all of a sudden she's like, oh, this is the guy I've been waiting for. Like, I just wonder how many women are going to be so desperate for, not desperate, but so hungry for that guys can almost just use that as a new pickup line.
Yeah, I think it gets back to that pickup artist thing too, right? Where men are learning how to manipulate women through language and faking being alpha males. Essentially, is what's happening. But there's always long term, it always comes out. Just, you know, like people can never pretend to not be themselves for too long. It will always come out.
Right.
And it's so tiring.
Yeah.
My God, it's exhausting.
I remember when I was learning how to meet women after the game, my pickup was I'd go up to girls and I would say, hey, my buddy's looking to get 2 puppies for his girlfriend and he wants to name them Milli Vanilli. What do you think? And I would use that all the time.
I bet it worked.
I got conversations, but after a while, I was just like, this is such bullshit. It's easier for me just to say hi.
And isn't that true, right? Like, just that authentic. And I know in some of the pickup stuff, they teach men to just go up to a woman and be like, you're beautiful. I just wanted to say that to you. And I think if that's coming from a genuine place, then that's amazing. You know, I think we need to think, how do we become the type of men that women want, rather than how do I pretend to be the man that women want?
How many women have a wall up already from the inauthentic men that if I went up to a woman and just said, hey, you're beautiful, beautiful. That their guard's already up. That I'm just a pickup artist.
Yeah, I mean, we could say that that's men's fault, but at the same time, I think that, you know, with all this, we were talking before about, with all this focus on men needing to do work, men need to show up for women, men need to become emotional, women need to do work too.
Absolutely.
You know, they're not perfect, and although arguably, if we look at them a lot of the time, you know, we feel like they're perfect, but and I think that they are, on average, emotionally have a higher capacity. But I think we can't say one person is fixed and the other one is broken, because I think a lot of the time that's the messages that are being delivered to men, is that you're not ready for women. You don't even know how to show up. And I saw in New Girl. New Girl is one of my, I love that show. And I think it was Jessica Biel was guest starring on it. And she said, I'm just about to hack and figure out how for women to give birth on their own. And then men are fucked. And I started to laugh, because it's like, is that true?
Yeah.
Like, if they could figure out, but I think women need to also learn how to create and allow the space for a man to be a man.
Agreed.
Like, we don't want to talk about everything all the time, but I think the key for a man to be respected in that space is, if you do need time, and women sometimes need time to think too, is to commit to revisiting the subject. Hey, you know what? I can't talk about this right now. I just need some time to process. Why don't we talk tomorrow at 7? And it's on you to bring it back up, because if you ask for that space and don't bring it back up and honor what you said, then you now let the person down and they don't believe you anymore. They won't trust you.
I know from experience a lot of women don't like that, though. Because I usually try that. Now, not necessarily coming from sometimes it's in a place of avoidance, but I've tried the you know what, like let's just put this aside and talk about it later, and they'll follow me around until we talk about it.
Yeah, that's totally true.
That is
but that goes back to what you're saying. Both people need to put in the work and be able to recognize, you know.
Well, and respect that we're both different people. Like, we have different abilities to communicate, and it's the difference between having a very charged argument, and successful couples are able to recognize, hey, maybe we just need a second, or in the moment, take a second before responding.
Right.
Because we can respond from this reactionary, defensive place, or we can take a second. And sometimes, if that means take a couple hours, again, it's the other person needs to recognize and honor that they're asking for what they need. And just because your ex didn't honor it and didn't, you can't make the other people pay for that. Again, it's like, you know, it takes a lot of patience and understanding to learn each other, and not everyone's the same.
And I think one thing with relationships is when you meet somebody, they're already that way when you met them. And a lot of times you try to change somebody, but they're already that way, quote unquote.
Totally.
So, it's hard to, you can't change somebody.
I like to just take a step back, think about it, and put that message on a large 29-inch cardboard dick and send it to them.
That's funny.
You're wrong.
All right, so we're going to start wrapping this up here. So, Erfan, any final thoughts? Anything you need to get off your chest?
No, thanks for coming on the podcast. It was a lot of fun.
Thanks so much. Yeah, this has been really fun.
Yeah, it's one thing I can definitely say is, from what I've seen in my own life, is that everybody's problem seems to come from a place of self-worth. And until they get that settled, I think they'll just keep having problems all the time. Because I value myself now, whereas before I didn't. Yeah. And I don't have any of the problems that I did before that I don't have them now.
Right. So, just the rage issues.
Yeah, just the rage, you know.
and the hoarding.
Yeah. The hoarding, yeah. I'll work on that one.
And for me, it's just once I dunk a basketball, then, then my self-worth will be through the roof.
It'll be perfect.
Yeah, I think that's finishing on that self-worth topic is so good, because once you really do value who you are and what you want and what you bring to the table, then you won't put up with bullshit.
Yeah.
You won't keep inauthentic people around you, because you'll be so authentic.
And it's the people that appreciate you for those things. Yeah. Like that mean girl that I go back to, I mean, if I was like doing something as silly as just like singing in public, it would I'd be scolded. Like, don't act like a fool, you're embarrassing me. Whereas now I can sit on a bus bench and talk to people with an iPhone.
Now you're getting rewarded for this skill that you were shamed for before.
Yeah. So, I think it's just someone, you
find people that value your uniqueness. And, we spend a lot of time convincing people that don't want to love us.
Yeah.
That make our unique skills, or things that, it's like when someone draws a picture and they're like, that's a shitty picture, instead of being like, hey, I love that you express yourself.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. So, Mark, final thoughts, final words of wisdom before we let you go.
You know, I felt like we ended on such a high with the self-love.
Perfect.
And we didn't even touch too much on penises, so maybe another time.
Yeah.
The 29-inch.
Oh yeah, we got that in there.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, we're talking about self-worth and self-love, but if you do find yourself in a dark place wanting to get back at an ex, shipadick.com.
That's us.
Okay, so that's it from us at the bus stop. Mark, thanks again for joining us, and one last time, just tell people how they can find you.
Sweet. Yeah, you can find me on my website at markgroves.tv, and then my Instagram is Create the Love. Same with Twitter, and I blog every day on Instagram. So and you can go to my Facebook page and like it, and that's where I share everything. Goes to that place.
And
that one.
Another website too, right? I think createthelove.com, is it, or is it another?
No. I am doing a singles retreat at the end of April, and that's sweatyourselfretreats.com.
Gotcha. Okay.
Awesome. Okay, well, that's it from the bus stop. I'm Jason.
I'm Erfan.
And we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.